Bit of a frog throat. In chapter 19 of Luke, there's a story about a man called Zacchaeus. Now, Zacchaeus was not a very well-liked man in his community in Jericho. He was the head tax collector, and nobody likes tax collectors. And he not only took care of the taxes for his town, but he took care of the taxes for his region. And so there were lots of people that answered to him. Now the problem with Zacharias was that he managed to dip his hand a little bit into the taxes for himself. And he shouldn't have done that, but he did. And one day he heard about this man called Jesus that was coming. And he decided that through the grapevine, this was somebody that he should see, that he should hear what he has to say, because everybody was talking about this magnificent man. And because he was just a small man in stature, he ran ahead and he climbed up a leafless fig tree so he could see just who this man everybody thought was so magnificent. And he saw Jesus walking down the road. And he came to the tree, and he stopped, and he turned around, and he looked up at Zacchaeus and said, "Zacchaeus, come down. I'm staying at your house tonight." Well, now everybody was floored. Zacchaeus, the tax collector, the thief, that took our money for himself, not just the Romans. And Jesus had never even met the man. And of course, all the tongues in Jericho started wagging. And for the first time in his life, Jesus made Zacchaeus feel like he belonged. And the reason was because they were both from the family of Abraham. And Jesus acknowledged that. Jesus knew that he belonged, and because of that experience with Jesus, vowed to return all that he had taken from others. It was the simple act of acceptance and recognition by Jesus that made Zacchaeus feel belonged, and he was willing to return what he had taken. In her book, Journey to the True Self, Discover Your Divine Magnificent, Dr. Ann Deatley states, as our awareness of connection and purpose expands and deepens, we more consciously attract or magnify the experiences we need to grow and evolve towards our highest state of being. Brené Brown quotes in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, spirituality is recognizing and celebrating that we all are connected to each other by a power greater than all of us, and that our connection to that power and to one another is grounded in love and compassion. Currently, I'm taking a class based upon the book Pure Human by Greg Braden. Based upon his research as well as that of many scholars and scientists, the mystery of our origins lays within each and every one of us within ourselves. According to the many different findings that they have been able to translate a binary code into a genetic code. And then they were able to insert the genetic code into the DNA. And from there, information was retrieved from the DNA. And after many steps, the researchers were able to transform the information that they found into the letters of the 4 major alphabets in the world. Without telling you the bottom line of the entire book, what they did discover was from the atomic mass of our DNA, the first layer of the code of each cell in our body reads, are you ready for this? God, eternal within the body. God, eternal within the body. We now have scientific recognition that indeed God is in our DNA. Regardless of who we are, where we are all connected here and far beyond throughout the world. In 1943, Maslow's hierarchy of needs was published, and that was a pyramid with 5 layers of our needs to be able to become actualized. And the third one in all of those, from the bottom to the top, was the one on the bottom was the physiological needs, and the top was the self-actualization. But the third one was belonging and love. That we need to belong and to be loved in order to be self-actualized. And even 80 years ago, there was an understanding of the need for belonging, for personal and spiritual growth, as well as self-actualization. In 1980, experts indicated that 23% of American population was lonely. 40 years later, 2020, 52% of Americans indicated they were lonely. Why do you think that's happening? Why are so many people lonely? We're not connecting with each other. We're forgetting to include God. Carolyn.
They don't go to church.
They don't go to church. Let's go get them. Well, loneliness tells us we need social connection, according to Brené Brown. Someone who lives with loneliness increases the odds of dying early by 45%. Pretty overwhelming statistics. You know, after World War II, developers began to make garage door openers an option as they were building new homes for the servicemen returning. I don't remember having one in my home in Chico until after we returned from Maine in 1964. Even though the garage door opener created convenience for us, it also helped to isolate us from our neighbors. We didn't have to get out of the car and open the door to drive in. And you know what typically would happen, and so as we did that process of opening and closing the doors, was, "Hi, Charlie, how's the kids doing? Hi, Mary, what's for dinner tonight?" And that no longer happened because we went in and out of the garage and we didn't acknowledge or see the people that were our neighbors. And we went, and then came the Walkman. We went everywhere with headphones on our head, on our ears. So again, there was no interaction with people. I remember I was in Hawaii one time and I was riding the public bus and this kid got on. He was working, you know, summer job for him. He looked like he'd be about 20. Got on, had his Walkman going. The music was so loud. He was going to need hearing aids someday. But the music was so loud, everybody on the bus could listen to what he was listening to. We all knew what it was. We went everywhere listening to music. So again, there was no interaction with people. And of course, now we have cell phones. So we don't have to even talk to anyone. We just text them or email them, losing our connection with others even more. It's an interesting thing to note that young people that are coming up that have only had cell phones in their life are not staying good or well or being let go in jobs. Why? Because they don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to have conversations with people one-on-one. This is their communication. In our desire for conveniences and organizations and to save time, we have isolated ourselves from others. Is it any wonder that individuals are challenged to feel like they belong? A feeling of belonging is associated with love and loyalty and attachment. And when we belong, we feel secure, we feel comfortable, and a part of any community, whatever it happens to be. Belonging is also about recognition and acceptance and validation. We feel understood, we feel appreciated for who we are. Belonging is linked to a positive outcomes, including increasing our self-esteem, resilience, and overall well-being. If we feel we don't belong, we tend to isolate ourselves and loneliness ensues. Loneliness, researchers found social isolation increases the risk of various unhealthy outcomes. Here's just a few: heart disease, stroke, a weakened immune system, obesity, inflammation, long-term disability, depression, anxiety, and even premature death. None of those do we ever want to encounter in our lifetime. As a country, we're divided and isolated ourselves. And during the 2016 Trump and Clinton campaign that transpired, what happened was counties were won by landslides. It wasn't that counties were now equally divided between 2 or 3 parties. No, a county went totally red or it went totally blue, with few exceptions. In 2020, we were forced to isolate because of COVID. It took over 2 years to return to some level of normalcy. One would think that by all of our sorting, by politics and beliefs, that surely we would be connected and belong to numerous organizations and groups. And if our beliefs and politics and ideology and geographic location with people that we think and perceive that they are just like me, that we believe exactly the same, you would think we would be surrounded by friends and have a deep connection. Even with the continued rise in our sorting process and similarities, loneliness is still on the rise. I'll never forget when my family moved to Maine, to Portland, Maine. I was 13 years old, and I was soon to enter high school. The first day of school, I absolutely knew no one. I dressed in what I thought was appropriate for California. I didn't know any different. And it was, the wide skirts with lots of crinolines underneath so that you rustled when you walked down the wall and your skirt wiggled. Well, remember in 1959, the more petticoats you wore, the farther out your skirt it was, and the better you looked when you walked. And of course, my socks were rolled all the way down below my ankles and sat on top of my Oxfords. Well, that wasn't how they wore what they wore in Maine. It was pleated plaid skirts and knee-high socks. I was like being in a foreign land. My clothes were different, I talked a funny accent, and the thick cat-eye glasses were of no assistance and not very inviting either. Talk about feeling lonely. Dr. Dietly points out we are not only connected by DNA, but also by shared energy. She states, taking the concept that we are all connected through universal consciousness a step further, reveals that being connected also means that all wisdom and the power of this shared energy is within us. Nothing outside of us can produce any more support than what is available within us through our connection to the vastness of our shared energy with all that is. We are more powerful and wiser than we ever realized. Oh, how much life would have been easier if at 14 I had known my divine connection with others. How many of you have been lonely? I have. Yeah, look it around. Almost everybody here at some point in time has been lonely. Often the thing that gets in the way of belonging is our own fear. It is fear that we'll be vulnerable if we reach out. We fear we will be hurt. We feel totally disconnected from the fear the pain is bringing. We don't want to fail, and so we fear interaction with others because of possible rejection. And that wall of fear gets in our way every time. Fear of terrorism further divides us from reaching out to others of different races, of different languages, of different religions, and of different beliefs. And our government right now is telling us that DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusion, and in any form, is no longer acceptable in America. Well, belonging is part of DEI. According to a New York Times article, a list of words has been created that are unacceptable for federal employees to now use because of their association with DEI. Belong and a sense of belonging are on that list of words. I wonder if unity, oneness, and connection will also be added. We must not let our government tell us the words that are acceptable and that we can use. We cannot continue to see ourselves on an island. We are not alone. We are connected one with another as well as God, energetically, spiritually, and through our DNA. And our government right now is telling us that the DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusion, is not acceptable. We cannot continue to see ourselves on an island. We are not alone. We must make an effort to create a sense of belonging. Yes, it will take effort on everybody's part. Yes, there might be some rejection. Seek others that have similar interests and engage them in conversations and friendship. If you don't reach out, you'll never know them. Be patient. Our differences were not created overnight. It is our task to engage and support others in the way we want to be supported. Focus on your similarities, not your differences. Remember, Ernest Holmes told us to be open in the top, and that applies here as well as within our spirituality. Be open to others. Be open to a new way of thinking. Be who you are. It allows others to know who you truly are. Your authenticity will create a meaningful relationship with them. Create a safe space for others, not only here at church, but in your home and shopping, wherever you go. If we can be honest in who we truly are, then a foundation of acceptance will be developed with another person. Listening is a powerful tool. Those who are lonely and feel left out often just need someone to listen. We all need to be heard. Brené Brown once said, "Those who have a strong sense of love and belonging have the courage to be imperfect." What a wonderful thought. Have the courage to reach out. Know that the divine right action is transpiring when you do. Author and psychologist Kim Samuel recently published in Psychology Today her experience that she had several years ago with Nelson Mandela. About 20 years ago, Kim had the opportunity to attend a dinner in honor of Nelson and Garcia Mandela. Now, Kim had met I have a hard time with her name, Garcia or Garska, previously, who asked her how she was doing since her father had died. Kim explained that the difficult part for her was the isolation that her father experienced with the struggle of his illness. Mandela, who had spent almost 3 decades in prison with long periods in solitary confinement, watched quietly as Kim shared her story. And then she turned to Mandela and said, "But of course, you know all about isolation." And very thoughtfully, Mandela looked at her and said, "Nope, I've never been isolated." "Not even on Robben Island?" she asked, referring to the notorious prison where he had been kept for almost 30 years in the Indian Ocean that was located on a rock. "You and the inmates for all of those decades were not isolated?" "No, not on Robben Island. We were all brothers and working together with a common purpose. I never felt alone." Mandela continued, "I have seen isolation, though. I have seen it in the child who has AIDS that nobody in a village will love, will care for, will touch, will feed, or will shelter. I have seen isolation, and it's very bad." Here was a man who had been isolated in the worst of conditions and yet stayed connected with his community through a shared sense of purpose. Each day, he and his brothers served the cause of his people's freedom and understood their personal struggles as a microcosm of the wider struggle for their country. They built a powerful sense of solidarity and belonging that endured the harsh conditions of that prison. Mandela never lost sight of the traditions that gave him a strong sense of his place in the world and the love of his homeland, or the wisdom transmitted to him from his elders. He drew from these foundations as he developed a sense of how to emerge from a prison undiminished, not diminished. His reflection on the child with HIV or AIDS indicated that there was more to isolation, belonging, than psychology. We know the isolation in our community. It's the seniors who live alone with no living relatives, and all their friends have died. It's the homeless family that lost everything in the fire and now lives in a van. It's the transgender teen trying to understand themselves and receives no support from others. It's the child bullied at school because they are different. It's the individual who sees no reason to keep living because it is too painful and too great and reaches for a bottle of pills. We are reminded in Matthew 25, "For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Truly, I tell you, inasmuch as you have done it to one of the least of these, you did it to me." What we do for each other, we are doing for ourselves, and what we are one with each other all the time. The only verse missing is, "When I was lonely, you welcomed me, and I belong." I love how Albert Marshall, an elder for the Moose Clan, the Mi'kmaq nation in Canada, explains how his people have survived for over 18,000 years, maintaining balance in their country and in their world. The key, he says, is when we act and we work together as a group. His metaphor, he went on to explain, is when you look at a tree, look down and what do you see? Well, most people see roots. What are the roots doing? They're holding hands. They're supporting each other so they can all stand. Whose hands are we holding? Who are we asking to join us? How can we help others belong? Indeed, we are one. We are in this together. We all belong to each other. This is the truth in my life, and this is the truth in yours. And so it is. Amen.